Good morning. As you all are getting settled in and comfy cozy in your chairs, if you want to drop in the chat where you're joining us from, either within Central Valley or if you have employees in Central Valley or a remote location, tell us where you're at. And also if we have any CEA members in the house, we always love to know that. All right, CEA member. Hi, Ashley. Cool. Well, I know we have a few more people joining us, but I know that Keisha has a full hour of training for us. So I want to make sure we're able to get to all of her amazing content. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to Creating a Culture of Professionalism, Civility, and Respect in the Workplace. This is brought to you by the Central Valley Regional HR Hotline today. My name is Anna Manzano. I am the digital media and event strategist here at California Employers Association. I just wanted to shout out Central Valley one more time. Before we begin today's webinar, I'd like to go over just a few details with you. Your audio will be muted for today's presentation, but there will be lots of opportunities to engage during today's session. If you have any questions pertaining to the presentation content, you can type them into the chat box at any time and we'll try to address them as we go. Keisha is an amazing trainer and I'll be here helping to monitor any technical issues or any questions that pop up. Make sure we get those answered for you. Handouts for this training, those were sent out in yesterday's reminder email. If for some reason you weren't able to access them or you didn't get them, if you want to just drop your email into the chat box, I can make sure that you get those right away. Last but not least, we have a survey today. So because your feedback is incredibly important to us, I'd love for you to complete the 2-minute survey that'll pop up in a browser at the end of today's training. The feedback that you're able to share with us, I believe it's 5 or 6 questions, very simple. That helps us continue to develop these trainings and to improve upon our resources. And we also share that information with our partners at Central Valley Hotline so that they can continue to serve you better as well. So I have the great privilege of introducing our wonderful speaker. Today we have Keisha Hansen, who is our Learning and Development Director here at California Employers Association. And again, I know we have a ton of information to cover, so Keisha, is all yours.
Thank you, Anna. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Hopefully you are, like Anna said, settling in, have something maybe enjoyable to drink or eat, have a little time out for today. And again, just another shout out that this is sponsored by Central Valley Counties. And as that, one of the benefits of being within the Central Valley Counties is that we have partnered with the Central Valley to provide an HR hotline to you at no cost. So these are all of the counties that's included for. And what that means is you can give us a call at California Employers Association Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and a live person will actually answer the phone, direct you to one of our HR directors if you have any questions. Some of them are listed below: terminations, how do we do it, when do we do it, paid sick leave laws, which are always changing, FMLA, does my employee need to take a break, do I need to pay them overtime? It can be just as simple, which sounds simple, but it is getting more complex, as what is the minimum wage? And that can be specific to different counties as well. So please, if you haven't already, please take advantage of that hotline. Again, it is at no cost to you. And we are available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And hopefully we can help you out with any of your questions. So if you're joining us for the first time and you're not familiar with California Employers Association, we are a human resource association based in Sacramento. We've been in business for over 80 years. And our goal is to provide peace of mind to the employers that we work with, with our human resource compliance solutions, with trainings such as today. We also do recruiting and executive coaching. So if any of that piques your interest, feel free to give us a call, either at that 800 number on the previous slide, which is designated specifically for Central Valley counties, or our 800 number is fine as well. And although this isn't technically a compliance session today, we want to give our lawyers peace of mind by letting you know that I am not a lawyer. So this should not be relied upon as legal advice today. We would recommend consulting an attorney if you have any issues of legal significance to you and your company. And again, we partner with several lawyers throughout the state of California. So if you are in need of one, you can give us a call and hopefully we can partner you up or refer you to someone to contact. So yes, we have a short time to discuss a very important topic, which with a very long title, creating a culture of professionalism, civility, and respect. So we're going to kind of dive into what are some of the barriers that prevent that in our current day society. Our workforce has gone through a transformation. We're still going through a transformation. And so a lot of people are still trying to adjust and really look inwards, look in their organizations and companies and identifying maybe what are some of the challenges that they're having. And this can maybe one of them. There was a reason you signed up for this webinar, right? Maybe some things aren't going as well as you thought and we need a little help. So with that, we'll talk about some of the barriers. We'll talk about how important it is to have, with the diverse society and workforce that we have, how important it is to a respectful work environment to be inclusive. And then we'll just add in some strategies. We'll give you some resources on how to create or maintain that foundation of respect within a workplace, and talk about the shift now into making work more human, right? And we'll talk about what that means in this short time again that we have together. So a question for all of you, and we've all probably on this webinar been working for a while. So we've worked for maybe one or two companies or businesses, or maybe we've observed our partners or significant others, family members working in an environment at work where there was not a foundation of respect. So just in the chat box, feel free to let me know what happens to an organization, what happens to employees when we fail to have that foundation of respect in the workplace. Anything come to mind? Hopefully it's not in the environment you are currently, but it could be. There could be some cracks in that foundation, right? If we don't maintain that foundation of respect, if we're not constantly monitoring it, there can be cracks and there can be issues that come to play. But for the most part, it can create a lot of tension. It can create people not wanting to work there because one commonality for most employees, the majority of employees just want an environment where they can do their best work, where they don't have to worry about not being respected, where they have an environment where they are valued, where they have their voices heard, where they have their opinions count. That's what building a foundation of respect includes. So as we look at this slide, in order to build or maintain that foundation of respect, and by the way, it's never any company's intention to not have a foundation of respect at work. Obviously, we have protocols, we have codes of conduct, we write those employee manuals, or we have our attorneys write those employee handbooks, and we have some rules and regulations built in. But again, if we're not constantly monitoring and observing and helping to establish that true foundation, there can be some cracks in that foundation. So what we really want to work on throughout this session is really recognizing, number one, we all come from different backgrounds and points of view, and that can create challenges in the workplace. We want to give each other space to be different, to look at diversity, and that diversity can include many things, which we'll cover, to be different, to be their true selves, to come to work being themselves and having their diversity and their differences be an asset to our workplace and our organization. We want to value the contribution of all employees. So we'll talk about how we do that and how regularly we need to do it in order for employees to stay engaged, positively communicating and collaborating. And there's so many different methods of communication these days. And some of us are working remote hybrid work, so it can be a little bit more challenging to connect with our peers and colleagues. So that can create some misunderstandings, some miscommunication, things can get lost in translation. So that's a huge part of creating and building that foundation of respect. Being consistent and fair in the treatment of our employees, coworkers. If you're in a position of leadership or management, you set the tone, you set the example, and employees follow. So if they see some cracks in people not being fair or having consistent treatment, that can create some challenges as well. And then this is becoming kind of a lost skill, the ability to truly listen. And I associate that also with communicating, in that we're trying to rush around and keep up with the pace of technology, when in reality, we're humans, right? We need time to process, we need time to listen, to find out what the true causes of issues are, so that we can respond well to our employees and our colleagues. So again, when we ask that question, what happens when we fail to have respect in the workplace? What are the results? And the results can be very costly. It can decrease productivity, right? If you have any kind of tension going on in the workplace, even if it isn't directly associated with you, but you're around it, it's contagious. And then everybody starts feeling that tension. Everybody feels that need to walk on eggshells, right? If it's not being addressed. So that can decrease our productivity, which can also lead to mistakes. Maybe we're not 100% committed to doing the quality work that we're used to. Maybe we'll have to redo something because we're distracted by this disrespect or uncivility that's happening in the workplace. For many employees, that will increase us not wanting to show up to work, right? If I don't have an environment that's really thriving, that really is encouraging doing my best work, then maybe I won't come in as much, and maybe I will start looking for another job, right? Which we saw during the Great Resignation. And then obviously with that disrespect or that unhealthy work environment, that can result in people just having lower morale, right? Not having that 100% engagement that they used to. It can result in gossip about what's going on in the workplace or with other coworkers or employees, which can result in some drama, loss of commitment to the job. I don't have as much buy-in because I don't feel supported. I don't feel valued. I don't feel that I can do my best work in this type of environment. And then that can result in a loss of credibility. If people are leaving the workplace, they might be sharing that. If you have a small community, they might be sharing it within the community you live in, or they might be sharing it on the big internet now, right, that we have. And there's several avenues that people can express their frustrations with the job. So that can ultimately harm a reputation for a company and prevent you from hiring quality employees. So quick poll here, because again, you probably signed up for this session for a reason. So we're just gonna and this is anonymous, so if you have coworkers, don't worry on how you're responding, but just a quick estimate. How would you rate your workplace on respect? Do you think it's excellent right now? Do you think it's very good? Do you think it's okay? It could use some work. Is it fair? We've got a few problems that we need to work out, and it is starting to create that tension. It is starting to create that unhealthy work environment, or people aren't communicating as well. People aren't feeling as comfortable sharing their opinions and ideas. When we're getting into the fair and poor, that's probably, we need to do a little bit of a reset there. We really need to see where we need to address some challenges and issues. So let's see, I think we've got everybody. So let's see, 50% of you said good. Okay, so, you're not alone. We're all struggling and have challenges. and as a result of the pandemic, and we've shifted, and maybe we're still trying to figure out what our work model is. Maybe we're still understaffed. So there's things we can do to improve. That's good. 25% of you said very good. So hey, maybe there's only one little issue and we haven't addressed it yet, and we're going to, but maybe we're needing some help in how we do that. And then 25% is fair. So fair is probably a little bit of a reset. Maybe we need to look at what is really going on. There could be a possibility of doing a climate survey, or maybe you have done a climate survey, and so that you know that's how employees are feeling about respect in your workplace. So we'll hopefully give you some examples and strategies here to help you with that. And every workplace is always trying to improve, to increase that employee engagement and have a positive work environment. And we can get distracted by shiny objects and putting out fires, and really just trying to keep the company and organization afloat at times. But again, if we neglect, if we don't address things, then it can result into some kind of a toxic work environment. So I wanted to bring up this slide, which is demonstrative of a recent study that was done in 2022. And it was done by MIT. Actually, a father and son researcher did this study, and they wanted to know why 24 million people had left their employment during the Great Resignation. So what they did is they analyzed over 1 million responses on Glassdoor, which Glassdoor, if you're not familiar, is a website where you can go and look up companies, look at how they do job interviews, and employees can actually rate their employers, and they can give feedback on their experience with working with their employers. So of these 1.5 million responses, they identified what the 5 signs of a toxic work environment was. And the number one reason people were leaving at this time was because of a toxic work environment. And it was that time where we had a little bit more time to think and really analyze our companies and really determine, gosh, are they really supporting me during this crisis? Are they really having my back? Are they really looking out for me? Are they really valuing me? And a lot of people, 24 million, said, no, I don't think so. And of course, some of the reasons had to do with wage and hour and all those things as well. But the number one reason they found was a toxic work environment. So we're really going to look into number 1 and 2. So incivility and disrespect was number 1 reason, is a number 1 sign of toxicity. Then they found number 2 was having a non-inclusive environment. And we're going to touch on both of those as it pertains to our topic today. But when you look at numbers 3 through 5, if you don't have any rules that are being enforced on a regular basis, if people aren't sure what are the codes of conduct, what are the protocols, that can lead to 3, 4, and 5, right? If you're not having an inclusive environment, if you're not reminding people of what is appropriate, if what is not appropriate, then that can escalate into those areas, which are really have true consequences, unethical behavior, being cutthroat with our colleagues and our co-workers, and bullying in the workplace. It just can be really brutal. So we want to avoid that. We want to prevent that. So when you think, again, of your own workplace now, or maybe in a previous work environment that you've worked in, what are some of the barriers to respect at work? Why can't we just get along? Why can't we just respect each other and do our work and be professional and lead our lives? What are some of the things that you think, some of the reasons or some of the instances that you think have led to disrespect in the workplace? And just put it in the chat. Any thoughts? And I would put at the number 1 of those, just to kind of help you out, one of them is just the inability to communicate effectively, right? And we are transitioning into different work models. Some of us are working remote, some of us are working hybrid. We have virtual calls, we have internal systems of messaging, we have phone, we have texting, we have email. And a lot of times the messages get lost in translation. So we start miscommunicating, and that can lead to issues of disrespect, right? So that's one that we see. Some other barriers to disrespect can include, we mentioned it before, and these that are listed right here, I would consider red flag, right? Again, when you start seeing these are the cracks that we're talking about in the foundation. When you start overhearing gossip or people making hurtful statements about people, or really aggressive humor, or inappropriate, unprofessional humor, then that means things have kind of gotten lost in translation, that the control is kind of going to the wayside. People aren't feeling comfortable with bringing any issues that they have to the person themselves or to the manager or to HR. And so they're gossiping about it on the outside, when really, in order to solve solutions, you should be able to bring your issues and challenges either to the person you have the issues with, to your manager or HR. But many of us avoid conflict. We don't really like conflict. We don't like to engage. We don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. We don't want there to be awkwardness, but it's inevitable. There's always going to be conflict at work because we are so different. Another one is evasion of people's privacy or personal space. So remember the open concept, and maybe when you're coming in and someone's on an important call, and you're interrupting them, or you're talking loud with another coworker, things like that. Disrespectful listening, which is I'm also listening looking at my phone or looking at my computer. I'm looking over your head if we're face to face. I'm just not paying attention. I'm just not giving you my full attention, which the message that's sending to the other person is that what I'm saying isn't really valuable to that person, right? And that's going to put a stop to the communication if I'm finding that person isn't being respectful while we're having a conversation. Because our relationships are built on each conversation that we have with our coworkers, our employees, and even in our personal lives. So if our conversations are starting out shaky, that we're not building that trust to have more respectful and more trusting conversations with our coworkers. Also, fault finding. There are companies where it kind of becomes a blame culture, and we attack people and not really look at the issue itself and try to find the solutions. So that becomes a lot of us trying to save our role or our position by blaming others, and that can create a very unhealthy work environment. And then another one is criticizing or mocking someone in front of others. And again, if you are in a position of manager and a leader, again, you're setting the tone. You carry the heavy load of being the example and setting the model for other employees. So if you're taking the time to criticize or mock someone in front of other people, then you need to know that your employees are following that example. So I used to work years ago in retail, not my current job, but in retail. And every week our general manager would call someone out intentionally in the staff meeting to tell them what they had done wrong. And it was very humiliating, and it didn't result in a very productive meeting. We would actually, all of us in the meeting would go out and leave and say, gosh, what happened in that meeting, right? But also it sent a message that this is the culture that I'm creating. This is the model. This is the example that I'm setting. So for other people, they might have started doing the same thing. And then that's where the domino effect comes into place, right? And then part of the issues that we mentioned or in the topic itself was how to be just civil with each other, right? And this is a great resource. I really encourage you to check her out. She's an author, Christine Porath, that has done a lot of research on being civil at work and in our personal lives. And she has a TED Talk. So if you like TED Talks, but she wrote a book called Civility in the Workplace, and it was a manifesto about why we're not civil. And again, she said, not being civil with each other is like a bug, and it sticks with us. Even if we're not involved directly, it affects us and it's contagious, right? So small acts of civility that she listed were simple things. And we, again, because we're rushing around and we're trying to get so many things done, and we're trying to keep up with the pace of technology and everything evolving, it can be as simple as not remembering to say thank you to someone, to ask them and say please, or to say you're welcome, or even to greet each other. I know a lot of us are on these virtual meetings, and you might have them scheduled back to back. And when you go from one meeting and then you're in the next meeting, sometimes we do away with the greetings and don't take the time to ask each other, how are you doing? You know, how's your morning going? Or how was your weekend? If it's a Monday morning, and then that starts to pick away at those small acts of civility. And when we think of what civility is, it's really about being courteous to others, right? Just that everyday courtesy, that everyday politeness, so that we're treating each other with respect. And some of the other things listed that I actually heard in a meeting the other day is respecting others' time, especially when you are scheduling all of those meetings. Are those meetings staying on track? Are you getting distracted? Are people having their phones in the meeting? Are they being distracted in the meeting by their phones? What kind of protocols are you setting up and establishing in those meetings? And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't take the time. We're just going from meeting to meeting. We don't take the time to say, hey, everyone, these are the ground rules. Or just reminding people what the ground rules are. Sometimes, again, like I said before, we have to do a little bit of a reset. And remind people that we want to be productive in this meeting. We want everybody to be respectful. We want to create a safe space so that people can express their ideas and opinions, so that we value everybody who wants to speak up. Those are the little things. Those are the little things of civility, when they aren't adhered to, can add up and can create that unhealthy work environment. Listening is another one. Responding to emails. So if you don't have an established protocol on when to respond to an email, somebody who might get a lot more emails doesn't respond to your email in a timely manner that you think is timely. So it could be 24 hours, it could be within 3 hours. That's for you to establish as a team, as a department, as an organization. What do we consider to be a respectful manner in when we're responding to emails? Sometimes when we're writing emails, and email is our default mode of communication, we're just saying what's on our mind, right? We're just getting it out, we're responding. Maybe we interpreted a negative tone from the email that the other person was sending, so we write it out and it comes out more natural, our natural language. And so it might be considered rude to the other person. We might use a little bit of language that gives the person the impression that this is rude. So anytime you get there, that's never going to go well, right? We all know that. If you're fighting fire with fire, even if it's in an email, that's going to be highly likely to get misconstrued, and it's going to escalate. So you always want to take a moment, read the email, have someone else that you really trust reread the email to see if there's any misinterpretation, if there is any overly negative language in that email. We actually have issues where it escalated simply over people emailing each other. It wasn't face to face, it wasn't over the phone, but the emails were getting out of control in terms of not having the respect, not having the courtesy, and being professional. And then owning your mistakes, which we'll talk a little bit about. But again, when we're playing that blame game, we don't want to own our mistakes at times because we feel maybe we'll get retaliated against, or the consequences will be too high, or maybe just our ego's involved, right? We don't want to admit that we did something wrong, but we'll talk about how that can be impactful in the workplace as well. And then the other aspect that is coming up, and again, as we transition in our workforce with technology, with how we work, with the different ways, locations we work, the definition of professionalism might change and evolve as well. I mean, many of us don't have to dress as professionally anymore, especially if we're working from home. But depending on our industry, we might have a more casual dress, and that kind of usually set the tone for professionalism. There's other things in terms of how we're communicating with each other. But again, your organization should have some etiquette, some rules of conduct that need to be adhered to. And if it's wearing a name tag every day so that our customers can see and converse with us and know that we're an employee, that would be something, an etiquette, a professionalism, a rule. And we have to want to give the reason why, right? Why do you have to wear the name tag every day? Well, we want to set a good example for our customers. We want to have interaction with our customers. We want them to know immediately who's the employee there in the workplace. So whatever those professionalisms are, we need to remind our employees, and especially with our younger employees, they may be coming into their first professional job, and so they're not sure what is professionalism. And we might set a good example at the beginning when we're onboarding employees, right? We want to set a good impression during our interviewing as an employee as well. We want to make a good impression. We want to watch our language, know inappropriate jokes. But as time goes by, if we start observing in our workplace that other people aren't really watching their language, they're kind of saying the inappropriate jokes, the not suitable for work jokes, then we start getting that impression that that's okay. So we all are responsible for maintaining that sense of professionalism and reminding these are the rules that we have at this establishment, this organization, this company. Because again, if we don't monitor that, if we don't address it quickly, it can escalate and it can get out of control. And then I like this one, how you treat people says a lot about you, right? And we are constantly communicating with our coworkers, with customers, with our supervisors and managers. So they're getting an idea of how you treat people by what you say, by how you act, by your behavior. So who amongst us doesn't want to have a positive response to how we treat people, right? Positive comments boost others. Again, that can be contagious. So whether it's welcoming a new employee, whether it's asking someone how their day is, if they look like they're having a bad day, if it's really being that active listener for someone when they really need to be heard and valued, that's really important. And then understanding your work environment. There's so many different industries, and as a HR organization, we serve all employers in multiple industries, and they might have a slightly different definition of professionalism, of what they expect in the workplace. But the important thing is to make it known. This is what our expectations are. If you're in a financial institute, you may be still dressing in a suit and tie, right? You may be still calling people by their last name, customers, and referring to them in that manner. Whereas in another industry, maybe that's not as essential, right? So really knowing what are the expectations at my organization in order to be professional. So as we talked about in the survey that was done on toxicity in the workplace, one of the things that they talked about, which was number 2, was not having an inclusive environment. So we have to talk about our workforce currently is the most diverse it's ever been, right? So inclusion is an important part of that. So when many of us think of diversity, we think of all the differences we have, right? We think of the what's above the surface. So we think of what we see or what we assume that we see of someone's difference in their race or ethnicity or gender or age, right? And if you've ever taken any classes on diversity, they mention the iceberg model, which those are all things above the surface, right? But really the accumulation of our diversity and differences is mostly below the surface. It's everything that has helped shape us as human beings. So who our parents were, for example, where we grew up, what our education was, who our friends were, what our overall life experiences were, and our beliefs. Those are what shape and make who we are. So we are all unique and we are all individuals. And if you look at this example on the slide, the graphic, it's all the ingredients to make a delicious cake, right? But all of those ingredients on their own are unique, they're individual, and they're special. But if we want to make that delicious cake, we have to incorporate all of those ingredients, right? So the same goes for diversity. If we already have a truly diverse workforce, in order to make it a truly productive workforce, we need to collaborate. We need to incorporate all that great diversity and acknowledge that people are different and that we respect that and that it's an asset that contributes to the overall success of the company. So what many companies do is they focus on maybe bringing more diversity into the workplace, many of the underrepresented diversity that hasn't been brought in before, but they don't really focus on bringing in inclusion. And inclusion really is bringing that practice of diversity into action by creating that environment where everybody is involved, right? Where everybody is respected for who they are as a person, and having those opportunities to connect with each other and really value and appreciate that diversity. It can be, again, multiple areas of diversity, diversity of thought, diversity of where I grew up, diversity of age or gender. But all of those should be looked at as an asset, and how does that contribute to an overall workforce? Because lots of research has been shown to prove that if you have a diverse workforce and you have inclusion, that you are more likely to be very productive and highly innovative and creative in that work environment. So it's all about making that mix of diversity work by being inclusive. And when you look at diversity, just look at this example, this graphic, on the 4 layers. At the very center is our personalities, right? And we all have different personalities shaped again by our own life experiences and all of those entities that we already mentioned. But when you're in a workforce and maybe you're brand new, you just start to get to know people and their personalities. You don't know that on the onset. So you're starting to get to know if someone's really an extrovert, or someone has a really is really responsible at work, or somebody really likes to speak up and really share their ideas and opinions. That's part of getting to know people. So we're all going to have varying personalities that we bring to the workforce. Then the next level is really the external dimensions that we mentioned. Where we grew up, whether we're married or not, what our personal habits are, what we do at home, do we bring those into the workplace, what we do outside of work, again, our educational background or just other work experiences that we had previous to this can impact the work environment. And then the next one is the organizational dimensions, right? So whether we are brand new in the workplace or we have seniority, if we're a manager, if we're working with different departments, we have definitely seen at times with employers who talk to us and share with us a divide in not really understanding what the goals of other departments or divisions are, because we're not connecting, we're not collaborating, we're not understanding things from their perspective. So there are a lot of layers, but again, you can look at this in one of 2 ways. You can look at this and say, gosh, there's so many differences. How are we ever going to get to that point of really collaborating, respecting each other, being professional? Or you can look at it, wow, look at all these differences, look at all this diversity. There's so much opportunity to collaborate, to brainstorm, to be innovative, to be creative, to get all of those different perspectives and bring them to the table so we can create a great work environment and a great workplace. Another one that's brought up quite a bit with employers is that we do have 5 generations working today. And one of the differences that a survey showed was workers said the primary difference between workers in the workplace is their communication styles. So this graphic is really just to share with those different generations what communication methods were available to them at the time. And if you see our oldest generation, the maturists, which are also known as the seniors, pre-1945, also traditionalists, veterans, they represent only about 2% of our workforce today, but many of them might be in very high level positions. They might be the owner of your company or organization, or CEO. They may own the family business that you work with. They may be you. But just look at what has evolved since then. So the different methods of communication that have been available, and maybe what now they're more comfortable using. And we don't want to stereotype or generalize anybody for what the communication is that they use, but because we have so many modes of communication, we want to get to know our audience and what is more comfortable for them. Obviously, if we're staying in the workforce, we want to be relevant, we want to be able to adapt to all the new technology, but someone might have a preference, right? So you may have someone in your engineering department that prefers face-to-face, and that's just because that's what they're used to. Or maybe they might have more questions and need more details that it's going to take too much time to do in an email, right? So we don't really want to generalize what forms of communication, but also we want to use these different generations, just having that diversity, having that work experience. They're going to have different skills and different set of expertise than generations just coming into the workforce, right? We've all been there. We've all been the new employee and the younger employee. So how can we leverage those assets that each generation brings to the organization? And when I did work in that retail environment, I had an employee who was 78, my oldest employee, and I had an employee who was 16. And they had different skills. The 78-year-old used to work as a travel agent for Fortune 500 companies. So she had exceptional customer service. She had exceptional phone etiquette. And she was able to mentor and coach the younger employee who was 16 on how to answer the phone, on how to build her communication skills and her customer service skills. And vice versa, the 16-year-old happened to know a lot about technology and computers and was able to mentor the 78-year-old, right? So we really want to look at how do we leverage everybody's skills and abilities so that we're sharing our knowledge, right? We're not holding it to our chest and saying, I'm not going to share this. We're collaborating and sharing what we know. So once we have established that work environment that feels inclusive, people feel like they belong. And elements of belonging include feeling seen. So what that means at work is I'm recognized for what I do. I'm rewarded, not necessarily monetarily, but I'm rewarded by an email, by someone saying thank you, by feeling more respected by my colleagues because they know what I do contributes to the overall success of the organization. And if you're familiar with Gallup, they have studied employee engagement for over 40 years. They also do the polling during the election time. But one thing that they have identified as being a part of an engaged employee is being recognized at work, right? And they say an engaged employee is recognized at work at least once every 7 days. So anybody here recognized, overappreciated? I can't take another compliment. Let me know in the chat. Because I ask this question a lot and I have rarely, only maybe one time, gotten yes. I'm over recognized at work. So we can all collectively recognize each other, not only supervisors with employees, but with our peers. And it can make such a huge impact. So when we feel seen, we're going to make more of an effort to connect with our employees, right? If we're recognized, we know we're respected by our coworkers, we have mutual work ethic, then we're going to connect and we're going to have more positive interactions with our peers, managers, and even our senior leaders. And this is challenging for some of those work establishments that are more hybrid, more remote, where people might not even be in the same state or even in the same country. How do we connect? How do we have those water cooler conversations and really get to know people? So that's been a challenge for some people. So we have to be kind of more intentional about it, maybe establishing some time at the beginning of meetings if you have staff meetings or virtual meetings. At the beginning of the meeting, allow for some time for people to connect, ask people about their weekends, ask people how they're feeling, how their week has been, how their weekend has been. And that builds that connection, and connection builds trust. So once we have that connection, we're going to start to feel more supported, right? And being supported at work means I know people have my back, right? I know if I do make a mistake or if I say something wrong, people are going to help me with that, right? And we all want to feel supported at work. And we want people to be able to chip in when I need extra help. Maybe we're all trying to meet a deadline, right? So it enhances and it encourages that sense of feeling supported, having that inclusive environment. So when you're seen, you're connected, you're supported, you're going to feel more proud of the organization that you work for, and you're probably going to share it more with the people that you interact with, your friends, your family. You're going to say, gosh, I work for this organization. It's very inclusive. I get to do my best work. I'm recognized. I feel a sense of belonging. I might have a best friend at work. All of those things contribute to being more productive, to being more engaged, and to being more collaborative with our peers when we have things to work on together. So one of the challenges of that that gets in the way is our own unconscious bias. And we're all biased. It's something automatic in our brain when that triggers, that's trying to make quick connections about people or situations. And we base those connections on our own experience and previous perceptions, right? So it's that fight or flight mode that we needed hundreds of years ago to determine whether something was scary, did we need to flee, or are we going to stay there and fight for what we think is right? So it's really, we're making judgments about things and we don't really have the facts. And what that can lead to is us making some mistakes, which can lead to micro inequities. So doing and saying things based again on our own previous perceptions and experiences and not really having the facts. So a couple is taking more questions from men than women during a meeting, consistently mispronouncing a person's name. And if you can see from the spelling of my name, that can be a pet peeve for me. But really, learning someone's name is important because it's part of their identity, is part of who they are. And when you learn someone's name, if it's different from yours, if it's something you've never heard, that shows a sign of respect, right? That's a courtesy. That's being polite. Getting to know who that person is just singly by their name is setting a good example. What we want to concentrate on are micro affirmations. So again, including others, asking them for their opinions, recognizing people when they have done something significant or not even that significant, something small that made us feel good or made the work progress a little bit further. Using our body language, our facial expressions, our gestures, taking a genuine interest professionally in someone's personal life, right? Not being overly interested, right? We don't want to be nosy, but we want to know genuinely how someone is doing, right? What's going on? How are they being affected by things? And we know as a result of the pandemic that our personal lives intercede when we're working, right? Things happen. We have emergencies, we have crises, we have family members we have to take care of. So when our employees, our coworkers, our colleagues, our managers show some interest in that or share some empathy, that makes us feel again valued and that we belong. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to continue to say or do the wrong thing. Again, we're all individuals. We all have different personalities. We all have different experiences that might make us sensitive to other things or might make us not aware of when we are making a mistake. So when you do make a mistake or you really put your foot in it, I said it and then I immediately regretted it. And now I recognize that that was wrong. Simply own it. And I think a lot of us avoid it because of ego or just not enough self-awareness. But when you do make a mistake, own it. Just with another person, with a colleague, with an employee, just say, I'm sorry. Check your ego at the door. There's no place for your ego when you make a mistake because you want to make it right. You want to move forward with that person, especially if you have an ongoing relationship where you're working with that person on a regular basis. Be honest, acknowledge what happened, apologize in a genuine manner. We all know when someone's apologizing just to get it over with and when they're being genuine and sincere, and truly say, what can I do to make this right? What can I do in the future to avoid this, to make things better between us? And how can I learn from this situation? And how you're going to learn is really listening to that person. And it has become more challenging, as I said, to be able to listen. And again, feel free to put your answers in the chat. But some of the reasons is, again, the pace of which we're going. We're constantly trying to keep up with what's going on, putting out fires, what's next on the evolution of our workforce, hiring people, all of the daily tasks and responsibilities that we have. We don't slow down. And in order to be able to truly listen in a respectful manner with our coworkers and even in our personal lives, is to be able to be fully present, right? That is a gift you are giving other people, to be an active listener. So how do you become a more active listener? Is you slow down. You really make an effort to learn the facts about something before we assume something. And if you've been working with coworkers and employees for a long time, sometimes we will jump to an assumption about things before we truly learn the facts. So we really want to take the time to learn the facts about a situation or an issue and clarify the situation by actively soliciting questions, right? When we're not sure, when we're unsure, really being careful of our bias and being more self-aware and trying to keep an open mind, even if it's somebody we've been working with for 25 years and we think we know what they're going to say, really trying to keep that open mind and staying present with that person. And then when we're speaking, saying what you mean and mean what you say. Resist the urge to interrupt. And we all have so many thousands of thoughts going through our brain that sometimes we just want to release it from our brain, and we don't want to forget it. So that's why we interrupt. But you really are sending a negative message when you're interrupting. It's making that other person feel like you don't value what they're saying. So we really have to stay on track with that and try to change that behavior. And then when we are face to face with someone, maintaining that positive body language. And you may not be in the habit of smiling. It might not become natural for you, but especially when you're in maybe a sensitive situation, you want to smile. You want to put that person at ease. You want to make them feel like, okay, we're going to get through this together, right? It can really de-escalate a situation really quickly by smiling, by inhibiting that positive body language. And then practicing kindness and politeness, right? Again, we want to think about how are we making people feel by what we say and by the behavior that we're doing every day. So being kind and polite, again, that goes back to being civil, saying hello to someone. And I was in a training one day, and I was talking about being the receptionist in an office and having a top executive come in quite a few times. He was in another state, who'd come in quite a few times, and he would never stop by the receptionist desk and say hello, or use my name, or ask me how I was. And it really gave me a sense that he did not value me as an employee, wherein I was really in a position where I was interacting most of the time with the customer. So I had a lot of good information that I could have shared with him. And someone came to me after that and they said, that is the same for me. I am the receptionist at my work, and barely anybody who comes in really takes the time to say hello or to ask me how I am. So everything we do, everything we say sends a message to the person, and how we're treating them and how we value them. So some things we can do. I know this is a lot in 1 hour, but if you were on the fair end on that poll that we did, maybe it is time to kind of audit your culture and see what your employees think and feel is happening. Do they feel that it is respectful? Do they think it is a walking on eggshells environment? The thing with this, though, is if you do a climate survey or any kind of employee survey, you have to be prepared to take action on things. And I was looking at a survey this morning that said only 8% of employees feel like their organization took action as a result of an employee survey. So you need to make sure that you take some sort of action and identify what are the critical areas that you need to do to improve the environment. Creating those safe spaces, right? Making everybody feel welcome into meetings, rethinking your meetings. Maybe you should add some people to meetings so that they learn from different departments and different divisions, recognizing and reviewing people's performance. Everybody wants to know how they do, so that they can learn and grow from it. And having those frequent informal check-ins with people to see how they're doing. And as we're wrapping this up, one thing we found during the pandemic was an organization called actually Work Human, and they wrote a book called Making Work Human. And really their philosophy is creating a work environment that really is concentrating and being more people-focused and human-focused. And I really like that they identified 3 pillars, because they're really easy to remember, on how to create that work or that human-focused work environment, right? Treating people as people and really showing that human factor. So number 1 is thanking people, which we touched on a little bit, because when our gratitude is turned into action, it can be contagious, right? It sends those positive vibes. Talking, communicating, how we share our sense of meaning between the organization and individuals. And that's really important for managers, sharing that meaning. If you've been shared something by the top executives and you're sharing it with your employees, where's the mutual purpose? Where's the mutual meaning involved? explaining the why. And then number 3, celebrating how we share our humanity and our common purpose. So just a few things with each of those, with thanking. Promote peer-to-peer recognition, because research has shown that when our peers recognize us and value us, it can be even more impactful than when our managers or our supervisors recognize us. And again, it is contagious. It sends those positive vibes. And when I receive a compliment from my colleague Anna, then I'm more likely to share that with someone else, or actually reciprocate and acknowledge Anna for what she has done. And she does a wonderful job with helping with these webinars. Recognizing both large and small contributions that people do, right? Everybody that is employed within the work environment has a contribution. So recognizing what people do and reinforcing that what they do really does contribute to the overall success of the organization. Recognizing individuals in ways that they value, right? Not all of us want a parade or a circus when we're being acknowledged for something that we've done well. Maybe it is as simple as an email or a thank you face-to-face, or if it's monetary, maybe a gift card of a restaurant that we like to go to. So finding out how individuals appreciate being appreciated and being valued. And then recognizing people every 7 days, and that's genuine and sincere praise, right? That's not just saying, oh, well, I heard in that webinar that we're supposed to recognize people, so high five. It's really actually finding a reason to recognize people, right? Really shouting out what people are doing well, what their strengths are, what they really contribute. And again, you're going to have overall good positive vibes. Talking, building relationships and trust. Again, each relationship is built on all the accumulation of conversations we have. So we want to make sure that our conversations are positive, that we're using appropriate language, that we're really listening to each other, and that will help create that trust, so that when someone does have an issue, when they do have a situation come up, they're going to be more likely to bring it to that person because they've built that relationship. And in terms of people who work in different departments or might work remotely or hybrid, maybe creating a committee when you're working on a project and bringing people from different departments so they can start to see different skills and assets that their colleagues have and bring that maybe they're not aware of, right? And then again, the one-on-one meetings, checking in with people, making time to have those regular conversations. We learn so much. I love the time that I have with Anna a few minutes before we start these webinars, because we are in different areas. I'm in Southern California, she's in Northern California. So it gives us time to get to know each other, and we can learn a lot from each other. And celebrating, we need to celebrate. That builds community, right? So whether it's having a food truck on a Friday, or having a shave ice when it's hot in the summer, all these things can help unite people and build that sense of community. And then again, feeling seen, feeling supported. And we want to celebrate all the wins. Maybe it's, hey, we got to Friday this week, and we're going to celebrate that. Asking employees, how do they want to expand the company calendar? Are there some holidays that are important to them that they want recognized, or just work holidays, work events that maybe they want recognized? And then recognizing the life events that happen to our employees. People get married, they have babies, they buy homes, they graduate college. So we want to acknowledge that as well, right? Again, that helps build that sense of community with each other. So wrapping it up, and we're really at the last second, creating a respectful workplace requires really being intentional about it. We really want to be sensitive to the reaction of others. We've learned that we're all different. Not everybody thinks the way we do. Not everybody communicates the way we do. Really being aware of our behavior, making sure that we're utilizing speech that's appropriate, that doesn't make others uncomfortable, really thinking a bit about that courtesy and being professional with each other. And if you make a mistake, own it and apologize. It's going to make such a huge impact. Speak with your colleagues, not about them. Avoid those snap judgments, that bias with others. And that will result in respecting your coworkers and peers. And we're all responsible Managers and supervisors and leaders carry the heavy load of making sure everything's adhered to. But even if we're individual employees, we have a responsibility to promoting that respectful work environment as well. So hopefully you got one little tidbit that will help you. But if you can't remember anything else from today, the golden rule has escalated to the platinum rule, people. It's treat others the way they want to be treated. Which it used to be treat others the way we want to be treated, but we know now we're all different. So we want to be treated differently, depending on our previous experiences and who we are. And with that, I will pass over the baton back to Anna.
Well, thank you, my dear, for the lovely little shout out. I love our little chats before trainings also and any interactions. And thank you for sharing your expertise with us in exactly 1 hour, like a pro. The reason she's the learning and development director, y'all, there's a reason. Thank you all for joining us live. Thank you if you're watching the recording here. I do have some codes for you. Let me pop that into the chat. And if you are watching a recording and not accessing the chat, the codes for today, HRCI code 640942, your SHRM code 23-3RT4V. If you didn't catch that, ceainfo@employers.org will always be there to help you. On the screen, you'll see that, like I mentioned, that little survey, 2 minutes of your time really does give us the feedback that that we really value to continue to develop these trainings for you. We share this information with our sponsors. Speaking of sponsor, thank you to Central Valley for helping us today. Make sure you utilize that hotline. This is free resources for you all to run your departments and your companies with ease. And with that, we look forward to seeing you on the next training. Thank you all. Enjoy your day.